Good morning. My name is Marco Galiazzo, and I'm the CEO of EKR, Enterprise Knowledge Reengineering. We work in enterprise knowledge journey management for 15 years, and we try to make involved people to act in harmony as the various players of an orchestra. In this session, we will discuss about knowledge management and project management, and we will see how these two disciplines are much more connected than you think. We will see first what knowledge is in an enterprise environment. We will see then how a project and its management is one of the biggest knowledge producer inside an enterprise. Both knowledge and project management are related to processes. The first starts from the person that knows the things and ends at the person that will use this knowledge. The second starts from a person that has an idea or a request and ends when this idea request has been transformed in a product or service. So this is the agenda of this session. We will introduce concept of knowledge and projects. We will discuss about involved people, and we will introduce the concept of knowledge bus. We will see how it works in the scenario of new products and custom products, and we will discuss about phases, tasks, and some tasks. Then we will see how to change from documents to a structured shared knowledge, and we will end with some final ideas. So let's start from the beginning. What is knowledge? Knowledge is an empiric and polyhedric concept. Inside an enterprise, knowledge is a lot of things. Here just a few examples. First one, knowledge is what R&D teams create in the meantime they are designing or changing a product or part of it. Just a small part of this knowledge is managed by PLM or PDM systems, and a lot of it is often not managed at all. And a second example is of knowledge is the unique expertise that a machine operator knows because he worked for years with a certain machine tool and will keep with him when he will retire. A third example of knowledge is a sequence of very specific steps that allow to obtain what we do in a country that I need to replicate the same way when we start producing same results in another country. These are three different types of knowledge, but today we will focus just in the first one. More in particular, the whole knowledge that is related to a project and then to a product. Knowledge management is all you need to do to ensure that knowledge, this super precious asset, is not lost or ruined. And let's go to see what project and project management is. A project is the container of all you have to do to obtain a new product development, or to evolve an existing one. In new product development, from a new product idea, you create a project that can lead the enterprise to obtain the product or service described in the idea. Project management is the process of leading the work of a team to achieve all project goals with the given constraints. A project is typically divided in phases, tasks, subtasks, and so on. Most of the time, all the produced knowledge is collected in unstructured documents that act as knowledge containers. Any project requires a time to be executed, and we can trace its phases in a timeline, typically a Gantt chart. Any step of the timeline can produce a certain set of knowledge. We can say that knowledge is the raw material of communication. Every time two people has to communicate, the basement is knowledge. Otherwise, the communication is absolutely useless. So we have some concept, some piece of knowledge that becomes information and then becomes a communication initiative. Let's go to see more in depth what knowledge is. We have 5 levels. The first level is when inside our brain we have a meaning. We know something. Is something that is inside our brain and is implicit. So probably many things are just inside our brain. Then when we want to make it go outside, we have to bind that with a symbol and starting to make it explicit. So we have to define a language, and when we bind meaning, symbol, and language, we get an information. That information can contain data. A more comprehensible example. Let's assume I'm an expert. I know the force I have to use to screw in a bolt in a certain circumstance. This knowledge is implicit. If I'm asked to screw in a bolt, I will do it in the correct way, with the correct force, because I have that idea in mind, I have that meaning. If someone asks me this concept, or I have to communicate this, I need a symbol. As an example, tightening torque 50 Newton meter. This is already an information. I already used the language to bind the meaning and the symbol. Sometimes I need another language to transfer the same knowledge, so I need to jump into the translation. Coppia di serraggio 50 Newton metro. Here the meaning and the symbol are the same, but the language is different. And then we can see inside that information, I can have a data, 50 Newton meter. Now we see that the expert have to transfer their knowledge through the knowledge journey. Much of the knowledge resides in experts, is implicit in their head, and hard to be captured. If you need to transfer it, you need to make it explicit in a way to let not expert people receive it, make it their own, exploit it in acts, because the final information user will use the knowledge and the information to act. We call this activity knowledge transfer, or more in a complete situation, landscape, knowledge journey. To keep the precious knowledge inside the company, you need to do an activity of knowledge retention. Knowledge retention helps you to avoid that your knowledge get lost, or as in the Chongari, it gets worse and worse. Where can we find the knowledge inside an enterprise? The knowledge can be in 3 places. The first one, the most popular, is people. The expert, product managers, R&D designers, and so on, know the things. There, the knowledge is implicit, is property of the single person. The availability is limited to the fact that I have the person available. Difficult to retain because if the person go away, I lose it. Difficult to transfer. Then we have a second step, the knowledge can be transferred through documents in unstructured archives. In this situation, is explicit. It becomes property of the enterprise, and the availability is limited to the granularity and searchability. It's not queryable, but is easy to retain and quite easy to transfer. That's the most typical mode to transfer knowledge. But the best mode is to use structured archives. As an example, relational database, XML files, or hybrid database, and so on. Here, the knowledge becomes explicit, is property of the enterprise, fully available, queryable, so I can query that knowledge base and obtain what I need very easily, and I can retain and transfer, and that knowledge can become, we will see at the end, documents for the final knowledge exploitation and the action. Let's go to see project and products. A project is a temporary and time-constrained mission that is aimed at producing a specific result, product or service. Project management can be defined as organized, planning, motivating, and controlling procedures, resources, and protocols in order to achieve the particular goals of a specific project. Most of the time, when in an enterprise there is a request to develop a new product, NPD, or to create custom product, a new project starts. So the project is the first logic container that leads to the product. Any project is related to time and very often involves more than one person. The involved team has to share the created knowledge, collect information in various project steps. A proper product information creation is often one of the deliverables of the project itself. We could say that a project always leads to a product, plus all the information, explicit knowledge, that has to be communicated with it. So when we create a project, we finally want a product and all the knowledge that is related to it to become information. This is an example of knowledge in a product. So the product name, product description, the parts name. We have a lot of misunderstanding many times in the parts of product name. Part description, technical specification, strengths, option, configuration, mounting information, use information, maintenance, safety, competitor comparisons, differences between previous versions, and so on. So there is a very huge quantity of knowledge related to product that typically is created inside a project. So let's see two of the most important people involved in a project. Product managers and R&D. The product evolution can be requested by an enterprise board, by product managers, or by a product committee to implement the product line evolution. When we have a customer-driven product, when we work for customer-driven products, the product evolution is directly requested by the customer that needs a product that is different from the already available standard. Product managers and R&D are the biggest product-related knowledge creators in an enterprise. We can say without doubt that product managers and R&D are the experts in terms of products. If product managers are most of the time the starting point of a project for NPD, the R&D is the place where most of knowledge is created. So R&D receives the request from product managers and confirms and extends them. The interaction between product managers and R&D is often unstructured. Requests from product managers and requests from product managers are documents, emails, phone calls, etc. Because these requests are sometimes incomplete, this requires R&D spend time to make them correct and complete for the next steps, with an expensive phase of knowledge parsing. When the project flow moves from project managers to R&D, it is typically managed by R&D management platforms, PDM, PLM, or internal folder process. The important is that these systems work in status change and well-defined steps. But these advancements are typically defined in ECR and ECO. When we are inside R&D, the project evolution is made of ECR and ECO. An engineering change request is used to describe a suggested enhancement or fix for a product design. An engineering change order, ECO, also called engineering change notice, engineering change, or engineering release notice, is an artifact used to implement changes to components and or products. The ECO is utilized to control and coordinate changes to product designs that evolves over time. Most of ECR become ECO after a feasibility study. Every ECO leads to a product change evolution that, in general, needs to be communicated to the world. When after the ECO, we have the complete product evolution that must be communicated through technical documentation, marketing, and so on. One of the major problems of this process is that R&D designers are mostly focused on CAD documents creation, 2D or 3D, and don't have a real place where to store the additional knowledge they create during the design steps. In the best situation, they fill unstructured documents with what they think could be useful in the future by other colleagues. Most of the time, being rushed, they don't make explicit their knowledge. So when someone in next project phases will need that information, he or she will have to do information hunting to retrieve a knowledge that have not been made explicit yet, in form of available and shared information. Let's see how many people is involved typically in a project. In most NPD and CPD projects, we have more than one people enrolled. Here are a few examples. Let's start from the customer, the product marketing, the typical product manager. Inside the R&D, we have R&D manager, project leader, and R&D designer, and so on. Controlling, purchasing, quality assurance, service, logistics, sales, communication marketing, training, technical communication and documentation, compliance, and after sales. In many projects, almost all of them are involved. Most of the people create new knowledge and or use knowledge made by others to make their job done. So that's the idea. The knowledge inside the project can be similar to a knowledge bus. We can imagine a project as a bus doing a journey. In every stop, most of people involved in the project have to produce knowledge. So the bus has to collect this knowledge in a form of a huge quantity of information, starting from the project committee, project manager, R&D, labs, purchasing, blah, 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 up to communication, marketing, and technical communication. In the real world, the knowledge bus is a bunch of unstructured documents that get more crowded step by step as the project moves on. So we we have to see that our situation is not like the left, but better like the right. The knowledge bus in the real world is a set of super crowded folders with a lot of documents. What we would like to have in an idea wall is a bus where every single piece of information, every people can put what they do in the correct place, and that knowledge is shared and available for all the other without any kind of crowding. Let's see more in detail what is a product development scenario. We have a product, we have an MPD scenario when the product evolution is defined by the enterprise itself with internal requests. As an example, based on existing product range, the MPD projects are driven by range extension, new product, or product evolution. There is a kind of product committee that defines the starting point, the requirements, and the target to be achieved. Then it works in several tasks such as define the project, specifying, feasibility check, prototype, and so on. This leads to the creation of a new product and a new product code. If we change the perspective and see when the customer requests a new product, we have CPD, Custom Product Development. We have a CPD scenario when the product is defined by the customer specific requests based on top of standard products. Most of the time, CPD is a customization of product already in the product line. Quite often, a customization is the base for an extension of the standard product line itself. The starting point here is the customer and his request to say from the request to sales. In general, sales representative pre-confirm that every customer request is feasible, but then have to go to the R&D and check the feasibility with them. So they have to match the best similar product and components, define the cost of the evolution, confirm, and go to the development. From here on, everything is custom and sometimes specific per serial number, even if it is based on standard 9 product. The whole knowledge journey in CPD must be very flexible to obtain the expected results, even if the number of final product is very, very low. Sometimes CPD obtains just only one serial number, just only one product. In this case, more than in NPD, it is very important that the knowledge journey is very efficient. Let's see quickly a few examples of project phases, feasibility phases, pre-design, design phase, industrialization phase, and so on. Now I show you a table took from a real project, from a real customer, divided in phase, tasks, and subtasks. The first is feasibility phase, then we have the kickoff meeting, we define the project team, we define the master plan, then we start analyzing the production volume, we go to, in a CPD, we go to the customer, we have to involve the sales and marketing to clarify customer needs and so on. Then we have to define the target price cost, the technical specification in terms of request, and then we have to go to the R&D to confirm this technical specification in the next phase, and then we have to check with the purchasing, with the sourcing, and the manufacturing constraint according to the machine we have available and so on. Then we have the design phase. We have to understand if we have to order tools to be able to produce. We have to check the certification. We have to involve the labs, and then we have to do mechanical tests and software and so on. Every phase then is organized in the tasks and subtasks. If we put all of them in a timeline, we obtain the Gantt chart. The Gantt chart is a summary of all the steps that are inside a project. And for every piece that is inside the Gantt chart, we can consider a team, a sub-team of the complete team. And for every point of the Gantt chart, most of the time, we have a bunch of knowledge to be collected. So now we saw that for every point, so task, phase, task, and subtask, typically we work with documents, and the risk is to have a crowded bus. Any task and subtask is assigned to a certain team. Any team has to define a certain set of information. The most popular tool to do this knowledge transfer is to work on several documents and folders. Typically Excel file, Word file, PowerPoint file, folders and folders. Updating version of them with the contribution of any team expert. Sometimes we can use a document management system to keep tracking the changes, but DMS are not so different from folders and files. This is the main problem. Documents are not the best solution to support this knowledge transfer in a knowledge journey scenario. This is the very big problem. Documents and folder can get so crowded to become similar to the crowded bus, and it's very difficult then to retrieve the knowledge. Knowledge exploitation most of the time is based on copy and paste and save as. So we have a high level of uncertainty. The knowledge is not clear, is ambiguous, and the process becomes very inefficient. This is the problem to solve. So we have to move from document to structured shared knowledge. We must use historical concepts already very well known in our world, let's say technical communication world. Concepts such as labels, tags, already used for content management. This can help the whole flow to correctly manage the precious knowledge using concepts as ownership, choice, sequence, granularity, and so on. The project timeline, in the project timeline, every task and some task has to allow to create its own structured knowledge chunk and must be easily shared. So here you see that, for example, we can distinguish the main goal of a project among a new product, restyling, cost reduction. So putting the correct text, the correct label, or when we are defining a model, we have two phases, knowledge phase, product manager specification request, and after feasibility checked, the same specification defined by another owner. Here the owner can be the product manager. Here the owner can be the R&D. So here you see product manager specification request coming from the product manager, and here after feasibility check, target specification achieved by R&D. So concept like this is a typical situation of structured knowledge. So the documents must be pushed just at the end of our journey. If we use a shared structured knowledge base to support project management, we do have to do what is the place for the documents. The documents might be used only for last step of the knowledge journey. When the product is near to be on the market, just at this stage, it's convenient to bind information to presentation and obtain the final documents to go outside the enterprise. So the technical communication can use documents just for the last stage of the journey. The same for training, for the customer support, marketing, compliance portal, and so on. Documents, static or dynamic. When I say documents, I mean PDF and HTML portal and so on, are one of the best way to make last step to distribute the knowledge to final user, to complete the knowledge journey. So, from the spoiled telephone to the stamp album. So we will see now that we have to avoid the spoiled telephone, and we have to jump to another way where objects are correctly organized with labels. So from a knowledge transfer, a knowledge journey like the typical game of the spoiled telephone, Chiongari, where the first on the left is the knowledge expert, and the last on the right is the one that makes the knowledge exploitation, and the knowledge need to get worse and worse. We have to switch to another approach. Let's assume that all the knowledge we need to manage inside the project is similar to very important stamps, and we have to collect them. So the stamps are there, but it's difficult to appreciate them if the way is just a bunch of stamps together. We have to learn from the collector with the correct way. So we use album pages where we have labels, and the collector put every stamp in the right position. The same way in the knowledge must always be compared with a checklist. So every step of our Gantt for every team need to be compared to a checklist where we have to define the knowledge that we expect to collect step by step inside our project, exactly as the collector step by step is collecting and putting the right stamp in the right place. So this brings me to the end of my presentation. I try to summarize my points. Project management and knowledge management are processes. Both involve many people. Knowledge is often connected to tasks and subtasks. Avoid document to store knowledge. Prefer a structured shared knowledge base. A good knowledge structuring can improve the efficiency of project management. NPD and CPD need a very flexible data structure, and quite often PDM or PLM are not sufficient, are very important, but are not sufficient. So use the document only for last part of the knowledge journey. Using these tips, your knowledge journey and your project management will become much more efficient. Thank you for your attention. Bye-bye.